Greetings, family. Anistara Maka here for Frequency Friday, part 2 of Messages from Egypt. Have you felt do you really resonate with Egypt? Has there been something in your heart that has guided you to want to visit this place, to take a pilgrimage and be in sacred ceremony at these sacred sites? Is there something in your heart and your spirit that is feeling the call to come and be in Egypt? Well, we have a very special offer for you at the end of this 4-week series where we will be taking a sacred pilgrimage to Egypt starting October 26th to November 14th, 2022. For now, I would love to share some photos and video from my recent pilgrimage to Egypt where I can where I have the opportunity to share with you some of the wisdom, some of the knowledge, some of the messages that have come through. As I said in part 1, there's certain frequencies and vibrations at each of these sites. Each one holds its own unique energy. And therefore, each one holds its own codes, if you will, its own messages. And so I wanted to bring up the beginning of the presentation. This is part 2, again, of Messages from Egypt. This is a photo of me standing at what I like to call the 1111 gateway at Hathor's temple. These pillars stood outside of the temple, and gosh, the moment I saw them, I said, I need to get a photo there. Yes, the energy is palpable and potent, please. And so my dear friend Cynthia, travel partner, you'll see some photos of her here during the presentation as well. She took this photo, and you know, as an 1111er, anytime I see two 11s next to each other, this is what I'm passionate about. This is the what I'm cultivating in my life, and the community that we're creating are 1111 energy, galactivation, portals, doorways, events and gatherings, and our virtual event 1111 Unify that will bridge them all together. And so I'm going to take a deep breath because I had a lot going on before this presentation, and I feel like I need to get settled for just a moment. I'm going to use my 1111 tuning fork here. This is the 1111 hertz. It's known as the angelic frequency of enlightenment and spiritual development. And just help myself and as well as us ground in for the moment. All right, and here we go. So I'd like to just share a little disclaimer that I'm not an Egyptologist or a chematologist or a biologist or any kind of archaeologist or scientist in any way. Although I have studied many things, including philosophy and psychology and theta healing and massage therapy, and I tune into energies in places. And so a lot of the information that I'm about to share with you are things that came through that I was guided to understand. And so this is all my own personal perspective, and it's essentially for entertainment purposes only. And there's a lot of information to share here. So I would love it if everyone could please honor and respect where this information is coming from. I am so open to learning more. I want the chematologists and the Egyptologists and the scientists and the archaeologists and the quantum physicists. I am inviting them in to come and be a part of our team during our joint research expedition next year and sacred pilgrimage. This is the intention, is to go and be in these places together and study them together. So I am open. The invitation is there. The temple doors are open for people who are knowledgeable as well as wanting to learn more and also understand the energetics of these places and the pure intentions that they were meant to have. So we traveled from Cairo. We ended our part one in leaving Cairo and about to get on a bus to travel to Abydos. This was about a 9-hour bus ride, which we had a lot of fun in the bus, just discussing things and really tuning in together about what are some of our ideas, what are some of our theories, what are some of the things that we began to understand as we were standing in these sacred places. And so this is the place that we stayed at when we arrived to Abydos. It's called the House of Life. And they were such a sweet group of people that hosted us. It is a retreat center, so there was some healing massages as well as sound healing availability, beautiful swimming pool, and we also got to experience a Zar ceremony, which is about cleansing and clearing away negative energies and truly stepping into a place of peace and balance. And so what an appropriate time to do that after a long travel, a long ride to Abydos. And the very next day was the spring equinox as we were about to venture to Osiris's temple in Abydos. This is a photo that our dear tour guide, Rabbi Khalad, took of me outside or actually was in the inner part of the hotel near the swimming pool. And this was just a beautiful statue of Isis. I really enjoyed it because it really showed the feminine body, right? It really shows the curves and the little pooch of her belly and her breasts. And she's just so feminine. And she truly is the divine mother of ancient Egypt. And so here I am just really embracing that mother energy. I do have a child. He's about to turn 6 in June. And just really sitting in the energy of what it means to be a mother, learning patience, learning compassion, having that direct reflection on a daily basis from your child allows you to grow and expand in ways that I never imagined possible. And I believed that I loved my partner and my friends and my family until I had my child. The idea of love changed. It shifted into something so much deeper, this soul remembrance that we've been here together and that we're here to do work together has just been a delight with my son, Cadence. And so I'm just dropping into the gratitude of Mother, having just had Mother's Day last weekend. I just wanted to honor all mothers in time and space in this moment. So we are ascending to the temple. This temple is one of the oldest sacred pilgrimage sites in the entire world. It is dedicated to Osiris, Isis, and Horus. And now we will enter the temple. Here we have Osiris on his throne. Osiris is the divine masculine. He is the divine father. Isis is his cohort, his partner, the divine mother, the divine goddess, and their son, Horus. And here, Isis is beside Osiris and behind him and supporting him and holding him. And I wanted to take a closer look at the base of the throne. At the base of the throne are the Ankhs. The Ankh is the symbol of the breath of life. It is the first breath when we are born and we come into this carnation. And so he is sitting upon the breath of life. And then just above it, you can see a red doorway. And this to me, again, is a doorway and a portal, a galactic portal to the universe. And we'll get into that a little bit further into the presentation. But you'll also notice the red lines of the throne. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And he's sitting on the 7th. And so the first thing that came to mind for me was the 7 chakra system. And you have your base, you have your survival, food, water, shelter, all of these things. And then you move up into the navel, into unity with the divine masculine and feminine, and your sensuality. And you move up into your solar plexus, where your power is, your personal power. And then we move up into the heart, which is also equal to the top of the doorway. The heart is the center. It is the bridge between the earthbound chakras and the heaven-bound chakras. And then we move up into the throat. It's clear communication. It's about speaking your truth. And then up into the third eye, opening that third eye, that spiritual eye, the way that we can see the light in others. Namaste, I see the light in you. You acknowledge the light in me. Yes, and that connection to the spirit, as well as the crown chakra, where he is sitting, that connection to source energy, God, goddess energy. And so we see a lot of 7s in hieroglyphs, as well as 4s and 3s and 11s and 9s. So again, each glyph or scene, hieroglyph scenes, have their own messages. So this was one of the first things that I noticed about Osiris's throne. So before I spoke of the Ankh and the breath of life. And here we have him being fed the breath of life from both sides, right? The balance of the breath of life. The Ankhs are facing him, and he's being fed this breath of life to come to life. And you can also see them holding hands, really signifying unification, unity, that we all must work together, that we are in it together, that we are holding each other's hands through this life. Now, behind Horus is Menat, and here, standing, they have energy in their hands. You can see the glyph on the right, you can see the close-up of the energy. And this glyph, I've been told, usually symbolizes water. But this specifically, because it is not water inside a vessel, it's actually in the hands, that it actually symbolizes hydroelectric energy. And so she's standing behind Horus, giving support to Horus as he gives Osiris the breath of life and holding that hydroelectric energy, which leads me to believe that they had more advanced technology than usual history teaches us. And so energy, holding energy, being able to transfer energy, being able to cultivate energy, being able to utilize energy for our breath of life, for our inner stabilization of our chakra system. And the ancient Egyptians knew a lot about energy. So a lot of the glyphs and a lot of the scenes illustrate and show energy transfer. This was a very, very clear and specific one. So we spoke of advanced technology and how a lot of ancient civilizations, we're told that they use ropes and pulleys and rocks to bang against rocks. And honestly, in my heart, as I'm standing in these places and observing the grandiose of them and what it may have taken to actually create them, I just feel in my heart, in my spirit, that they truly did have an understanding of certain technologies that we might not even have today. And that some of these technologies might have been washed away when the civilization all but disappeared. And we'll learn this more as we talk more about other ancient civilizations and the Mayans and how these grand, big civilizations, Atlantis and Lemuria, that they were really, really advanced civilizations, but then they were washed away. Somehow there was a disaster. Somehow they disappeared. However they disappeared, whether they blew themselves up, whether they were taken off planet, whether they went into the earth, I feel like we may never know. But the mysteries of how these ancient civilizations were capable of creating and doing certain things that we might not even be able to be capable of doing today, presently. So it's all a mystery and all wonderful. So I want to take a closer look at this particular glyph because this has been shown. I have seen a few documentaries where they show this particular glyph. At the very top left-hand side, it looks like a helicopter. You know, it has this line along the top that would be the propellers, and then the body of the helicopter underneath it. And then to the right of that, there looks like a ship or a yacht, this boat, very, advanced seafaring vessel. And then below that even looks like a submarine or a spaceship. And so some theorists, some people have began to believe that these were symbols of very, very advanced technology. But if we carry on to the next page, we will see that here's an example. The bottom part shows what the original hieroglyphs were. And so what was shared with our group was that the glyphs above are examples of graffiti. Somebody coming in, actually making changes to the glyphs. And we will see this later when we discuss how women specifically are starting to be really removed from the walls, their faces chiseled away and stuff. So here we have the original glyphs. You can see that the top right-hand one is a hand. The one below it is a diamond on its side. The one to the left looks like perhaps a bow and arrow, right? What I do want to draw your attention to as well is underneath it, the 11th, right? Those single lines that is reminiscent of 11s. And so, of course, I got very excited about this one. So these graffiti glyphs are something that occurs and happens. And it really saddens me to see this and witness this, because when I saw the documentary, I got really excited. Like, wow, look at that. There's hieroglyphs of these advanced technological vehicles. And imagine what that could mean. And yes, we were shown that they were graffitied hieroglyphs. All right, so we will move on to this next piece here. Speaking of the Divine Mother and Isis. Oh, Isis, wrap your wings around us, your wings of protection. Here she is standing behind Osiris, and in all her glory. She's actually wearing Hathor's crown on this one. In part 3, we will discuss the 7 crowns of Egypt and how there are 7 different kinds of crowns. And so sometimes a particular god or goddess will be wearing another's crown, and it means that they're symbolizing something. So when Isis is wearing Hathor's crown, it really truly means that she's the Divine Mother in this depiction, because Hathor is this, we'll go further into her later, but she is also the depiction of the mother. She's part cow. She has cow ears, and she's usually feeding from her breast, from her udders, the milk of life. And so here we're looking at Isis as well, feeding her son Horus from her breast. So just calling in that Divine Mother energy of Isis and all of her wisdom and all of her knowledge. And again, open vessel, really excited to learn more about Isis, to learn more from Isis. Her story is very unique and interesting. And the more that I learn about her, the more I really appreciate her. So here I want to look at the bottom of the throne as well. again, there's the 7 lines leading up to her sitting on the 7th. And then the red doorway as well on the throne. Entering Isis's chamber. Isis and Osiris inside. Isis on the throne. This is our rest. It was really a beautiful moment for me when I entered this chamber. So what happened was I was standing at the previous photo or previous depiction of Isis with her wings. And I had this beautiful shawl on that had wings on it. And I was holding the shawl out with the wings, but standing beside Isis, and Cynthia took a photo of me in it. And when she walked away, one of the security guards came over and he looked at me and he looked at Isis and he pointed to Isis on the wall. And then he pointed to me with my wing shawl. He goes, Isis, Isis, I want to show you something. And he brought me back to this chamber. And so this is the only chamber in the whole temple where Isis is the one sitting on the throne. So there's 2 depictions as you enter where Osiris is on the throne and Isis is behind him. And then the next 3 depictions are her sitting on the throne. So it was such a blessing to come and enter this chamber and to sit here. Basically, the security guard sat me down and he says, you sit, you meditate for a while. Okay. And he went and he kind of stood beside the door and he was watching me, but he was also making sure nobody else entered the chamber. It was such a blessing. Like, he gave me a private moment in this chamber, and I must have spent maybe about a half an hour in there alone, just looking at the scenes, looking at the glyphs, just feeling the energy in the room. And I pulled out my journal and I started writing an invitation to Isis to learn more from her, and to learn how to embody that divine feminine mother goddess energy, and how to embrace it and embody it more in my life, and to live from a place of love and patience and compassion. And a lot has come through since then. I've written many, many pages with Isis. So I look forward to sharing more of that with you as we carry on, and not just through the presentation, but our future book that I'm hoping to publish this year. So we'll carry on into this next piece here, where this is the depiction that was at the end of the chamber. This is the one that I was sitting in front of as I sat down. And I started looking closely at it. And of course, you know, anything 11 jumps out at me. So at the very, very bottom, there's a red line here. Very, very bottom. There's one red line, and then the next, and then the next. And that is where the feet are standing. Like, they're standing in the 3D world. They're standing in 3-dimensional world. And then you move up, and then there's another red line, number 4. And then number 5. And on up. And of course, Isis is sitting on the 11th red line. So what does this mean to me? Well, again, when I'm writing, I find that there's information that comes through from each dimension, right? So there's the third dimension that we're living in now. Then there's the 4D, and then there's the 5D that so many people are talking about. The 5D is really still grounded in the 3D world. It doesn't mean that don't exist on this plane of existence anymore. What it means is that we're vibrating at a higher level or a higher frequency. And so when we keep our energies of love and compassion and patience and acceptance, then our whole body vibrates at a higher frequency. And so part of that is keeping ourselves healthy in our 3D bodies as well. Because when we're dealing with sickness or some kind of disease or anything like this in the body, then it lowers the vibration down into 3D where we're dealing with it head on. And so taking our supplements, taking our vitamins, staying as healthy as we can, getting our sunshine, taking walks, eating well, and nourishing our mind and our body and our spirit, we're able to lift our frequency and our vibration. And so as we go up into those levels of frequency, when we get to the 11th level, this is where we are really connected to source energy, to all of creation, to the oneness that we are all. So this was a really beautiful moment for me because it just like, woo, okay. And 11 code came through as I was sitting in this room. So we're just going to hold here for a moment as I explain this. Part of my intention, part of my mission, part of going and being in Egypt is not only to experience the sacred sites and really drop into the energy of them, but it's also to understand how we may utilize them again. So for instance, each site was built for a purpose. Each temple has its own reason that it was built. And I feel like it's not just to honor the god or goddess that they are meant to worship in that particular temple, but that they are places of solitude, places of meditation, places of worship, and maybe even places of travel, astral travel specifically. And so I'm learning a lot about what some people are calling portals to another dimension, or universal doorways, universal gateways, starseed portals. There are many, many names for these particular things. And what I experienced in Egypt was in many, many of these sacred sites, there was doorways. There was literally a doorway in the wall that seemingly went nowhere because it is a wall, right? Made of stone or granite or whatever material that particular wall is made of. And yet, when we vibrate our cells and our atoms at a particular frequency, we can experience different things. And so, again, this is all something that is possible. It is something that I would like to learn more about. It is something that I'm willing and open to understand better, and perhaps even learn how to open these doorways and these portals and these gateways. So that is, to me, part of 1111 Unify's mission and vision, is to be at these sacred sites and activating these portals and these doorways and these places that could potentially open and take us somewhere new. And so it's very exciting, actually, when I think about it, because so many of these sacred sites were built for this, and now they're almost sitting dormant, like they're unused in the way and the original intention that they were meant to be used. So I'm calling that in. I'm calling that in. I'm right here publicly saying that I want to learn how to move through doorways, right? I feel like we're all capable. We're all have the ability to do this. And so I want to learn how to do it. So hopefully some of you want to learn how to do it too. We can do it together. So this particular doorway, I wish I had a little map to show you, but if you come to Egypt with us, and you'll experience this particular temple, there are chambers throughout the temple, and each chamber had its own either scene or a doorway. And so I believe there was like 4 or 6 of these particular chambers that each had their own doorway. So here I see a doorway. I see 2 doorways, actually. Perhaps one for the masculine, perhaps one for the feminine, perhaps one for Isis and one for Osiris, however we want to see it. But you could see that the frames of the door make an 11-11, right? Because you've got the double doorway there. And then in the center is this sword, this like piercing energy of straight and solid and balanced. And that's the energy that I see when I peer at this doorway and this portal. And again, above it too are all these straight lines and all these 11s in my mind's eye. So I'm just seeing 11 all over this particular doorway. And we'll see some more of them too. The Jed pillar. There was a lot of conversation around this particular glyph within our group. And what we came to understand was a few things. The first thing is the Jed pillar has a lot of influence on, how can I say? Let me rephrase that. What I saw when I was standing in front of this glyph is I saw the Divine Mother, Isis, over on the left-hand side. I saw the Divine Mother. And then I see Osiris on the right-hand side, the Divine Masculine, lifting and erecting the Jed pillar in the center. And then down below Isis's arm is their son, Horus. And so you have a triad. You have the Divine Masculine and the Feminine and the child all erecting and lifting up the Jed pillar to make it straight. The Jed pillar symbolizes Osiris's spine. And so you want to imagine when you are sitting erect that it's your chakra system that is aligning, that it is your inner stabilization, your inner balance of the polarities that is being erected, and that it takes 3. It takes a family. It takes unity between masculine, feminine, and the child spirit, right? And so in Christianity, that would be God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit, right? So across all lines, across all time, across all cultures and religions, there is a teaching about how to balance, how to find inner peace, right? The Buddha, Muhammad, Allah, everyone teaches us how to find balance. Christ consciousness is love and balance. And so when the Jed pillar is erect, then it allows for complete connection to source, to energy, to the one. I like to start calling it the Omni One personally, right? It's omnipotent, it's omnipotent, it's omnipresent. It's the Omni One. It's the everything one. It's all and nothing. And so here on the right, we see that the Jed pillar has become erect and that it is standing straight. What was fascinating for me was after seeing these glyphs, I went back to the hotel and I rested that night, but I couldn't fall asleep very well. A lot was going through my mind. I finally did fall asleep. And at about 4 a.m, I bolted up. I looked around. I'm like, wow, I have to write. And so I grabbed my journal, and it's dark outside, so I don't want to go out on the porch. My travel partner is in her bed in the room, and I said, where else can I go and write in quiet and have light to write by? And so I went into the restroom and I sat on the throne, and I opened my journal and I started writing. And I wrote for about 45 minutes. And when I was done, I came out of the bathroom, and Cynthia had woken up, and I was shaking. Just like, Cynthia. She's like, are you okay? Like, what's going on? And I said, a code came through. One of them came through. Like, oh, I was shivering. I had full body truth bumps all over. And I just, even now, as I'm saying it, I feel it over my entire body, just this vibration, this going through my whole body. And I looked at her and I'm like, one of the codes came through. And I said, can I share it with you? And she said, yes. And I opened the book and I started sharing it with her. And we were both blown away. We're just like, she just held her heart and she said, I am so grateful to be here with you right here, right now in this moment. And so, yes, the intention and the plan is to have the book published later this year. So all of you will be able to read more about this, but I will give you a little teaser here. We're going to move on to the next slide so that you can see a close-up of the Jed pillar and what really came through the eyes of 1111, of course. So if you look close at the Jed pillar, there's lines. And if you look down near Osiris's hands, you can see the first line. They're thin lines here. But there's 1 line, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little lines. And then there's these like vertical lines that go up to the next thick line, which is the 7th, right? So if we're talking about chakras, we're talking about that's the 7th. And then you move further up and you move through the 8th. And then between the 8th and the 9th are eyes, being able to see, wisdom, knowledge. 7, 8, 9. And then the 10th line, the 10th is the last thick line. And then above that is unity. This bubble of unity, the masculine and the feminine inside one. And then, of course, if you turn your eyes sideways, you will see that from the base, you move up and you move up through the 1111 doorway. You move up through the 1111 gateway to get to unity. I mean, when that came through, it just mind blown, amazingness. And it meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to me. And suddenly the jed pillar meant so much to me. And I'm not wearing it, but I bought a bracelet with it. You know, my girlfriend made a little joke. She's like, "What time is it?" I'm like, "It's 11:11," because the lines was right there from the jed pillar on my bracelet. So anyhow, there will be more around this. There will be more around this. I want to learn more around this. If anybody has any more ideas around this, please write to me. I would love to hear your perspective and your interpretation, or something that might have come through in that moment when I was explaining this. Again, it's the masculine and the feminine, the child spirit, and it takes the triad to raise the jed pillar and to have that inner stabilization and balance and love and unity to reach that place. So thank you for letting me share that part, because that was huge for me, and huge for us, huge for humanity. Honestly, I know it in my heart. So thank you for letting me share that. So, of course, I'm standing here at the temple, standing at the base of Isis on the throne again, and this light comes into the chamber, and my beautiful new friend, Ina, took this picture of me on the left here, and I just felt so blessed to just be showered by this light as I'm standing in Isis's chamber and receiving these codes, and just feeling like, all right, light codes are activated. They're getting activated. There's something inside me that's just cracking open in my DNA, and just like, remember this, remember this, remember this. I'm like, yes, please. I'm trying to write it as fast as I can. I'm learning to use a voice recorder too. So again, being open to those light codes being activated in the highest and best way, for the highest and best good. Open vessel of receptivity. Thank you for all that I'm receiving, about to receive, and will receive, to share with our human family. Thank you, and so it is. So now we are approaching Hathor's temple. We went from Abydos to Dendera, where we came upon this temple. And this temple is unique because it was made during the Roman era, and it has a lot of astrology in it. There's a lot of symbols of the zodiac signs are on the ceiling. There's symbols around the moon and the sun, and the setting of the sun and the rising of the sun. So there's a lot that has to do with astrology in Hathor's temple. Something else that came through while we were there was threes. There was so many threes in Hathor's temple. And so as I was walking through it, I just kept saying, Hathor, please bestow, please. I'm all ears. I'm listening for the 333 codes of Hathor. And so certain things would pop up, and I would look, and then, and then over here, so there's a lot to do with astrology, a lot to do with threes, and a lot to do with energy movement, and Kundalini. There's also a lot to do with femininity in this particular temple, and we will explore that very soon. So let's move on to the next video, where we're entering Hathor's temple.
My neck's gonna hurt by the end of this.
No, my friend and I were like, our necks are gonna hurt after this temple because we're just looking up at this grandiose ceiling, and it is massive. I mean, it's so hard to really see the sheer size and bulky, heavy, just solidness of this temple. So I want to share one of the first things that that really came up was we walked through the temple and then went outside to this little area where there was the most intact faces of Hathor, because that whole entrance hallway didn't, like, a lot of her face was removed or taken off and flattened. And so you can see Hathor's face here. You can see her cow ears. She's part cow. Again, symbolizing mother and the drinking of milk, mother giving a child or a baby milk. And so this particular part of Hathor's temple was special to me because not only was the light coming through, but as you step through these pillars and you get into this space, and we're about to look at the ceiling of it. Me and a few others had the opportunity to really just sit down and meditate here. And again, that's a rare privilege. So they always tend to want people to keep moving through these spaces. So whenever we have an opportunity to sit and meditate, it's very special. So we're going to go through Hathor's pillars here to look at the ceiling. So here you can see Hathor's head and her body curving down all the way to the right-hand side. Bottom part of the glyph are her feet. And then at the top, you can see her hands and her arms. And so she's in this kind of U-shaped position. And the first thing I saw when I saw this glyph was from her personal power, from her solar plexus, from that sun, that radiant fire within the belly, from that place, she comes and she speaks her truth, right? The energy coming out of her mouth, and she speaks her truth. And that's what came through for me in that moment in time when I saw this. What Rabbi shared with us is that Hathor swallows the moon, or I'm so sorry, swallows the sun at night. It passes through the night, and then it's rebirthed in the morning to shine again. And so this symbolizes sunset and sunrise. So again, you're standing in a place and you're told one thing and you feel one thing, and they all have validity. They're all meant to be heard. And so I really appreciated being able to interpret this in my own way before being told. And so I moved through a lot of the spaces like that. Sometimes I would be a part of the group and I would listen to what's being said, and then I'd walk around. Sometimes I'd walk around first and then listen. It depended on the temple. It depended on the space. If I walked in and I felt confusion or like staticky energy, I preferred to listen to some of other people's interpretations of it before I dropped into what I was seeing and feeling. And sometimes when I walked in and it was like instantaneously, I just felt like, oh, look at that, there it is, kind of thing, or felt a certain energy and I resonated with it. Then I really liked going through and kind of seeing things and interpreting it for my own before listening to others' ideas around it. So Hathor's temple, I walked in and felt I resonated with it in a very deep way. So here we have a depiction of Isis on both sides. and she's blessing this lion, this long cat, this body of a long cat. But then it also looks like somebody's laying upon it. And then when you look closer, you can see Isis is holding the feather of Ma'at. And Ma'at, the 42 ideals of Ma'at is how we should be guided, or how we are guided to live our lives. And you can look it up online. Just Google search the 42 ideals of Ma'at, M-A-A-T. But the feather of Ma'at is specifically used when somebody passes, when somebody is westing. There was no real word for death. It was westing. And as the sun sets in the west, our life sets in the west. So when we're westing and we're about to go into the other world, our heart is weighed by the feather of Ma'at. And if your heart is heavier, meaning you've done wrong to people, or you've lied, or you're a thief, or multiple other ways that you can wrong other people, then your heart is heavier than the feather, and you do not get to go on to the other side. And if your feather, if your heart is as light as the feather, then it means that you were good energy, good person, that you did good deeds, that you helped others. And so here we have Isis holding the feather of Ma'at, reminding us to be good to each other, to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. You know, there's so much discord right now too, especially online. Just so many arguments between people, and name calling, and blaming, and shaming, and criticizing, and it's not getting us anywhere. It's just making things worse. It's just creating more polarity. It's creating more duality. So again, coming into that inner stabilization, coming into that balance, coming into neutrality around things, being able to see both sides, being able to see the bigger picture of the puzzle, but not, how can I say, not taking one side so strongly that you're insulting others and making them wrong for their own ideas and perspectives. So I know that some might be watching this and be like, oh, wow, her ideas and perspectives, you know, and it's okay. It's okay. I'm sharing them freely, and I appreciate that I'm able to do that. And some will listen and some won't. And that's okay. But to make me wrong for it, or blame, or shame, or criticize, just being a part of creating more separation, more of the polarity, more of the duality, when all of our greatest teachers, all of our spirit teachers, all God, Buddha, Allah, Muhammad, God, Goddess, Isis, they teach balance, right? So let's find balance together. Again, we're looking here at the Ankh and that first breath of life. There's also another piece of the glyph here. It kind of looks like the Ankh's wearing wings, but I cannot remember the name of it. So I'm not going to try, but you will see this particular, it looks like a staff with a head on it, almost like a walking cane. And I'll look it up. I'll ask Rabbi. I'll remember what that is, and I can share it in the comments below. But again, we're looking at repeating patterns here. Just like, remember this, remember this, remember this, right? Everything on in the temples are fully intentional. Everything is completely meant to be there for a reason. There were no more sticks, or how can I say? There could have been some mistakes, but I truly believe that everything has its precision for a reason. It's like the pyramids being lined up for the stars of Orion and reflecting that night sky on the Giza Plateau. It's there and done that way for a reason. It's not just coincidence. So Now, this particular scene, this depiction, is on the outside walls of Hathor's temple. I don't remember what side of the temple. But when we were showed this, and again, you can see the staff that he's holding in his hand that I don't remember the name of right now. But Horus is holding that staff, and he's sitting on the throne. And this goddess, and you can tell it's a woman because you can see the breasts, she is holding a platter above her head covered in stars. And so when I first saw this, what came to mind was that, again, here's another portal. Here's another way to travel through the stars even. Here is a universal offering. If you look closely at the stars, some of the patterning, it's very similar to the stars on the ceiling at Unos and Tete pyramid, the text pyramids that we discussed in part 1. And so they look like the flower of life when they're connected, when the legs of the stars are connected, and it starts to create the flower of life pattern. And so we start dropping into the ideas of sacred geometry and mathematics and the Taurus energy and how everything is connected. Another interpretation of this universal offering is that we come from the stars. We are star seeds. We're seated in another place in the universe, and we came and inhabited Earth. Another interpretation is that you are giving the gift of knowledge from the wisdom from the stars, from source. So there's many ways that we can interpret this particular scene. But what I really saw when I looked at it was the wisdom of the universe, that it is obtainable and that it is a gift. It is a gift. And so when we're open to receiving this gift, the more we will receive. For the 7th. So we missed the beginning of that. We're going to replay it real quick. This is the only depiction of Cleopatra the 7th. So this, again, was on the outside of Hathor's temple. And if Cleopatra the 7th was so important, why is there only one depiction of her? So we're going to go a little bit further into that and how there may be a fear around feminine power. Women coming into power, women of power, women of wisdom and knowledge. And the Divine Mother has so much to offer. The Divine Mother can teach us so many things. And yet, when we are living in a patriarchal world of linear knowledge and time, the idea of the mother and following the 13 moon calendar instead of a 12-month calendar and acknowledging cycles, how things move in cycles. This is what we learn from the feminine aspect, is that things are cyclic, that they rotate, that they're spiral energy, that they're all connected. It's not linear. And so what we find in some of these sacred spaces is that the woman in general, depictions of the feminine, depictions of women are defaced. They are literally taken away. Their faces are scratched off. It's chipped away. In this particular image, this is on the ceiling of the 3rd floor of Hathor's temple. Her breasts are literally removed. Her face has been removed. And you can see on the right-hand side, you can literally see how her yoni has been drilled away. Down at the bottom here. Yep. And so when I walked into this room and I looked up and I saw that, I started crying. I just started crying. And how much the divine feminine has been pushed down, pushed away, silenced even. And I really believe that we're in a new age where the feminine is rising again. And we are all being called to embrace the feminine within us, including the men. And that the men who are more in tune with their feminine side will find more inner peace and balance. They just will. And that the women, we find our inner masculine and we find balance with that as well. Because we both have feminine and masculine energies. And we can learn so much from each of them. And so I just want to take a moment and acknowledge the divine feminine, the divine mother again, for all that we learn from her. And bless these spaces, bless these places where the women's face and body have been scratched away and removed from time. I love you, sisters and mothers, goddesses, sisters. We're in this together. Let's rise together. So we're walking outside of Hathor's temple, and the group is walking and we're talking and looking at things on the wall, and we walk right by this. And I said, wait a minute, what was that? I turned around, I took a closer look at it, took a little video of it, I took some photos of it. And honestly, I'm just like baffled at what it must have taken to create this and how it was made and who made it. And I mean, there's literally lines along the outside edge of the circle, like machining lines almost. And so when I see things like this, again, I go back into what kind of technology did they have? What kind of capabilities did they have that we're just not even aware of? So again, I'm ready to explore more and dive into this more and calling in the right people that we can play in this way. We can weave in this way. Robbie mentioned that this is a wheat mill. So I would like to learn more about it. Yeah. Oh, all right. This particular glyph really jumped out at me. We were with a small group in one of the very lower parts of the temple here. And we'll see the other side of the glyph in the next slide. But what I felt, what we discussed, and what I really began to feel and understand this is the rising of our energy. This is the rising of our frequency and vibration. This is the rising of our ascension. So many people are being turned off by the word awakening, but it is about moving our Kundalini energy up in the light. This kind of roundish bubble part kind of looks like light to me, and the rising of the Kundalini and the serpentine energy. And again, we're looking at both sides. We're looking at polarity, the duality, and rising to meet each other in the center. The masculine and the feminine rising to meet one another. And then we have those who are balancing the energy on their head, right? So we have that energy of holding source energy from the crown chakra. And the ones kneeling, yes, with them holding it on their head, they're actually offering something as well. Their hands are out and they're offering something, a gift of some kind. And then you can look and you can see the Jed pillar actually holding that energy. The Jed pillar has the top of its head holding that energy. And you have the arms coming off the side of the Jed pillar holding that energy as well. And those arms are Ka, K-A, right? You got that energy of Ka. That's life spirit energy holding up that light energy. And so we're going to take a closer look at the side of this glyph. Excuse me. And here you'll see that all of this energy and light is coming from the lotus flower. And in ancient Egyptian times, they used the lotus very much like ayahuasca. And so you have this entheogenic plant medicine that is allowing your Kundalini energy to rise. Okay. And so the depiction is very clear that it is coming from the plants. And we'll when we go into part 3 and starting to explain some more of the plant energy and the pillars at the Temple of Isis. So here, again, we have that Jed pillar holding up the energy of the Kundalini rising. And we're going to take even one more closer look at it. And we're going to take a close look from the side. And so what I saw through the lens of 1111 is the Ka of 1111 holding our Kundalini rising energy. Right? So we have that 1111 gateway, that 1111 portal of the Jed pillar, that inner stability, and the spirit of that holding the light of our Kundalini rising. Again, this was another code that came through, and I've been writing about it. And it's so beautiful when I sit here and look at it. It really is. That Jed pillar. I did want to mention something about the Jed pillar. It's the DGED, DJED, Jed pillar, right? And Star Wars, the film series Star Wars, talks about the Jedi, and that the Jedi are the ones that cultivate energy. They learn to master their energy, and that they work with the Force. And if upon closer examination, you will see that the lightsabers that the Jedis hold, the handle of the lightsaber actually has the lines reminiscent of the Jed pillar. And so they used the Jed pillar as an example of the light and being able to use the Force and the light of the Force to protect from darkness. And so you can look that up. I mean, we just Google searched Jed pillar and Star Wars, and it totally came up. You could see a picture of the Jed pillar right next to the lightsaber handle and how it looks like the Jed pillar. And that the Jedi are those who master the Jed pillar. They're the ones that master energy and inner stabilization and balance. And so, Jedis, we are here to master energy and learn how to enter these portals and the gateways together. So let's do it together. Dear friends in Hawaii, Jonah Martin Lyon, he has the Jedi Alliance, and he spells it with the D-J-E-D. And so you can find out more about him, Jedi Alliance. So just giving you props, brother, for a moment. Mwah. So again, Hathor's temple had a lot of threes in it. And so this was an example of a 3 and a 3 side by side. This you can really see Hathor's face as well. And then you can see her cow ears and the lines in her hair, right? And then she almost has her own pillars, right? So on the right-hand side, on the pillars, just below her face, you'll see 3 lines. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, right? So 3, 3, 3. And then between the pillars, you see 3 dots. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So 3, 3, 3. So I'm really dropping into exploring more of Hathor's 333 codes. Yeah. You know, the 3 is really about Trinity. It's about the balance between the masculine and the feminine and having that observer point, having that third point where you can see both sides from. That point of neutrality is so important to find the balance and that erecting of the Jed pillar. So here in this glyph, again, we're seeing the lotus flower they used as plant medicine, and that they used it to open the third eye. This eye glyph is the eye of Horus, and it symbolizes the third eye. It symbolizes the decalcification of the pineal gland. It symbolizes the opening of the third eye and being connected to spirit. One of the things that Rabbi would say, he's like, as you walk through the temple, don't look with your physical eyes, look with your spiritual eye. And so when I see this glyph, I instantaneously, oh, it's the spiritual eye. Yes. And then you can see on the glyph, on the bottom right-hand side of the eye, is the sacred spiral. The bottom right-hand side of the eye is the sacred spiral. And so again, spiraling energy, the moving of the Taurus energy, the giving and receiving, the reciprocal feedback loop, the in and the out and the out and the in and the upside down and all the energy in between, right? So we have the third eye opening with the plant medicine and the spiral of life all here in one glyph. It's so powerful, so powerful. Yeah. And again, it's actually inside that circle of unity too. That's at the top of the dread pillar. That's at the 11th level, the 11th dimension, the 11th frequency vibration. So outside of Hathor's temple, there's a building to the right, and it is the birthing house. It is a place where women would literally come and birth their children. And inside the birthing house was this beautiful doorway, this beautiful portal. And so this birthing portal is, when we were standing at it, all my mother energy just went, oh, like my heart opens. I felt this warm peace just wash over me. And it was such a powerful moment. And I was sharing it with Cynthia. And so here's a photo of both of us at what I'm lovingly calling the birthing portal, right? So if you imagine a certain being, multidimensional being that vibrates at a certain frequency is able to pass through this particular doorway to be birthed into this 3D matrix. And so what kind of energy do we need to have to pass through these portals and these gateways? So this was a very special moment. I'm going to be digging more into this in my writings. So have more to share with you on this one in the future. I'm going to share a little video now, I believe, of the birthing temple.
Look at the ceiling. Come through and be birthed. Look at all the mothers and the children here. The whole wall is covered in mothers with their children. Oh. It's like a serpentine lion. Oh, and then up here is the mothers with the young children. Oh, and then above, it almost seems like mothers and their grown children. Oh. Oh. Wow.
What are these sneaky lion things?
I know, that's what I just noticed too.
I've never seen them before. It's like that to watch it eat.
Back to the portal doorway of the birthing center.
I don't know, you can just see them moving out.
Mm-hmm.
I see it outside.
Mm-hmm.
They were just like,
So the other woman speaking in the video is dear friend Dragonfly from Big Eye. Love you, sister. So again, you can see on the ceiling the stars, right? That sacred geometric pattern of the flower of life as we enter through the birthing portal into the temple of life. So here is one of the examples again of these portals, these gateways, these doorways that seemingly go to nowhere. This particular one on the left-hand side is in the ceiling, the top level of Hathor's temple. And this one specifically is allowing the light to come through. And so one of the things that I just recently learned that I'm very, very excited about was that the shaft, the king's shaft, the shaft that goes down into the king's chamber in the Great Pyramid, that particular shaft allows the light of Al-Nilam, one of the stars of Sirius, one of the stars of Orionis. It's a large blue supergiant star, 2,000 light years away, estimated to be 215,000 to 832,000 times as luminous as the sun and 30 to 64.5 times as big as our sun. And so this light of this particular star goes down the king's shaft into the king's chamber on November 11th at midnight. On 11/11 at midnight at 45 degrees and 180 degrees. And so the star of Al-Nilam in Orion shines through the chamber, through that shaft down into the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid. And so this one is in Hathor, and I would like to learn what this one is directed to. What star is this directed to? Because it certainly was letting sunshine down through it. And you can see there's glyphs all along the walls leading up to where the sun is coming through. So that little tidbit I just learned on a documentary on YouTube. It's called The Great Pyramid K 2019. And so I haven't finished watching it, but it definitely has some interesting points on how they believe the Great Pyramids were built. So So again, these portals of light, or these gateways that allow starlight to come down into these temple spaces, and then doorways that seemingly look like they're going nowhere, but knock on them with a certain frequency, maybe you could pass right through them.
To the other side, to the afterlife, to the all life, to the Omni One. We may enter the doorway, the portal, the gateway. Let us find out together how. Let us find out together how.
So that's one of my intentions. I really, really want to learn how to move through these doorways. I really do. I think it would be very special. And here we're exiting Hathor's temple. And it was such a blessing to be at this temple and to receive so many messages. There are so many things that I left out of this presentation just for the sake of time. But I'm really wanting to explore and dive deeper into this, and calling in the Starry family right now that want to explore deeper, through emails, through book sharing, through documentary and video sharing, all the way to perhaps even joining us for our sacred pilgrimage and joint research expedition next year. So family, I just wanted to close out our time together with a little bit of the song from the King's Chamber. Some of you who watched part 1 last week have already heard the full scope of this particular song. Those of you who haven't, so blessed, so blessed, so blessed to be gifted some time in the King's Chamber alone. And then this beautiful family of 4 people came in and started toning and singing along with me. I had pulled out my phone and started recording and captured about 15 minutes of beautiful, beautiful music inside the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid. And so we're just going to listen to about 7 minutes of it right now. So if you want to take some time to just close your eyes and drop in, if you want to even use an external speaker and place it on your belly, or lay on the bed and have it vibrate the bed. It's a really, really potent opportunity to just receive the frequencies that came through when we were in the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid.
singatera. Turianana sigatana peto. Omiashana katea setones. Pruniana elatana komase. Me agoni alatana tu iashara. Oniendatina pakashatea. Protiti pahasito no. Emayana kona sitayate. Poliashana kita. Rumastina katea. Omiasana kea tutun. Prosata. Prosata. So.
And just dropping back into this present moment in time. I'm just feeling so honored and blessed to have the opportunity to share this with all of you. It's ever growing, ever expanding, ever learning. It's a work in progress. I don't even want to say work because it's not work. It's just beautiful. How things are unfolding. When I pick up the journal and I start writing, how it just flows, and I'm just feeling so eternally grateful. Just so grateful that I had the experience to go, especially in times like these, and that every day I feel continuously blessed by having gone, and the lessons being learned, and the information coming through. So I'm so grateful to have this opportunity. I also want to take a moment to invite you. If you're feeling the call, if you're feeling like you want to be at these places, that you want to see some of these glyphs that I shared with you today, that you want to stand right in front of them with me and my family and Rabbi, our tour guide, and experience them for yourself and see what they say to you, then I invite you. The temple doors are open. You can join our email list so that we can start giving you some information around that. And pretty soon we'll have a website page where you can apply to be one of the participants of the Sacred Pilgrimage and Joint Research Expedition next year, so that we can be at the Temple of Isis in Philae on 11/11/22 together. So I look forward to having some of you with us. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Brielle, for being in the background and assisting me with all the technology so I can just sit here and speak. I so appreciate you, sister. All right, family. Well, I will see you next week for part 3 of Messages from Egypt. Anistara Maka here, mother of 1111 Unify, and I hope you have a beautiful and blessed week. Mwah.